Dad Mod's Media Machine presents the Brews with the Dudes podcast.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, that doesn't work.
Are you trying to be the Unabomber? Trying to put the hood up?
The Unibrower.
Unibrower.
I'm the Unibrower. Brower? The
Brower?
Unibrower. Could you just imagine? It just looks like you've got a caterpillar across your forehead.
Oh, God. There's a guy in the, I don't know if he still plays. There's a dude in the NBA that had a unibrow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And apparently he was really good, but every time I saw a picture of him on social media, like I don't know who you are, but I know the unibrow.
Yeah, know that brow.
Like, somebody needs to make a sign for him that says, fear the brow.
Fear the brow. Yeah, I know. It's like those brows, man, when they get real bushy, they're a force to be reckoned with. I don't know. Well, I definitely have I have the potential to have a unibrow, but
I think everybody has that potential.
I have to maintain the forehead.
Okay, so you shave your face, then you're like, right between the eyes.
Yeah, like there's a couple of hairs that just love to try and like poke out on the top of it. It's real sexy. It's a good thing that I have a wife already, so that I'm not on the hunt now that that's becoming a thing.
Oh, that's true. Isn't it to some degree? Isn't there some truth in the whole like you kind of let yourself go after you lock one in?
Well, okay, so I was pretty obsessive. Not obsessive. I worked. I will put it this way. I worked. Worked out quite a bit. Worked on my appearance, all that kind of stuff before the wife. And now I'm definitely trying to kick it back into high gear because I see myself closing in on 40, and I go, oh, I'm forming some bad habits. Like kids make your life super busy, so I'm like eating shittier. And now it's like, okay, I've got to try and get back to that. So no, for me, I'm definitely not letting myself go because I kind of have this feeling like you marry your spouse with a certain personality type, and if they go from being somebody who has good self-care to just somebody who doesn't at all,
that's one extreme.
The agreement just changed.
Yeah,
you know?
that's a completely different
if you let
extreme.
yourself go and you go from being you exercise, you take care of your body, you eat healthy, to you balloon the fuck up, you're eating McDonald's for every single meal, and you're drinking too much alcohol, whatever, you go, oh, okay, well, this isn't the agreement that we originally had.
No, there's definitely some truth to that. I don't want to say let yourself go. I noticed like when we got married and I was way skinnier, and like you said with kids, like life just gets so much freaking busier.
Yeah, it gets pretty nutty.
But I was talking to the wife of setting a goal to do a Tough Mudder next summer.
Hell yeah!
I'm like, let's work out. You gotta help me eat healthy because I have a habit with snacking. Like I get home from work and then I'm like, ooh, yeah, I could go for a bag of chips. Which I shouldn't, as we drink
here
beer.
you go.
No, you're gonna have one of these. These are IPAs. This is not a stout.
Oh, you got an IPA?
Yeah, this is for you. They did not have what I wanted. I had to write my name and phone number and what I wanted on the back of a receipt, and she's gonna put it on her manager's desk.
That's cool. Did you tell her that we run a successful podcast and we'll talk about where people can get it?
I was more afraid of her taking my phone number and putting it in her pocket.
Nice. Was she a looker?
Yeah. I was kind of bright in there.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Brews with the Dudes podcast, where we have the longest random introductions ever. I am one of the hosts, Jake Lindquist.
I'm the other, Donnie Allen.
And we're glad that you're here with us.
Well, virtually.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to a couple of idiots ramble.
Yeah, we don't ramble. We tend to have some direction.
Yeah, that's why we just had a 10-minute introduction.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of it. I mean, like,
it was the direction to the introduction.
Our tangents, our start out tangents, they're the warm up for the real thing. We loosen up a little bit. We find some chatter within whatever's going on that we're already going to talk about.
It's like stretching before your football game or whatever.
Exactly. And sometimes, usually, I feel like we've got a couple of funny one-liners that pop up in there.
I can't remember. It's one of the rules in Zombieland. You got to limber up. So if it's good enough for zombies, it's good enough for our podcast.
We're mentally limbering up for sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching on the YouTubes, it should look a little bit better. We've upgraded a lens, and
I shaved, so that helps too.
Oh, that's why you're so shiny.
I didn't want to tickle the thighs, so
that's fair. I mean, yeah. I'm not going to go on that tangent. I was like, well, am I going to overshare if I start? Okay, yeah, I'll probably overshare. Well, that's good. That's nice of you. I'm sure your wife appreciates that. I mean, in a day when it's stubble, she'll end up with like whisker burn.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Did the cat get you? No, that's just
No, that's the husband. Well, who's going to be looking at her inner thighs to ask that question?
Gynecologist.
Ah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, why would the gyno? Well, because there'd be bumps, and the gyno would be like, "Is this something we need to like? Do I need to take a sample of this and send it to the lab?" And she's like, "No, my husband shaved."
Oh God, my
They'll be
poor
like,
wife. This is why she
Gotcha.
doesn't listen to us.
Does your wife have a male gynecologist or female?
Female.
Okay. Yeah, same
What the
with, same
hell
with
is
my
her
old
name?
lady.
I can't remember her name. But she's fantastic.
Okay.
She's a super cool doctor.
We're not going down like we're not having a serious conversation about this.
Oh yeah, you and I know nothing about that area.
Okay, so you haven't had a whole lot of significant others, but have you ever had a significant other? I mean, you've dated a lot of girls, but
yeah.
you haven't had like serious relationships to where
I think you just called me a slut in the nicest way possible.
Yes, you haven't had like serious relationships to the point where not a lot of them where you would know this information. Have you had any significant others that have had a male gynecologist?
I don't know. I just lost Mike. My mic just cut out.
What do you mean your mic cut out?
It seems quiet. I can't hear myself.
Oh, okay.
Yep, you just lost Mike. Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, I'm not in the mic, am I?
I am not sure. So hang on a second, guys. Awesome. Okay, well, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, so not that I know of. Like I guess I don't know.
Okay,
It's totally possible, but I've not a whole lot of relationships where we got that far into the relationship. I mean,
where you had that conversation.
yeah, like we
right?
were still shitting with the door shut. So like we never crossed.
So the wife and I
those
have never
boundaries.
shit in front of each other. But that's
Oh,
another
dude,
thing.
I had a
I've
dog and the kids in there like minutes before I came over to your house.
Perfect.
It sucked.
I've had 2 girlfriends now, fairly serious girlfriends, that both had male gynecologists, and it just I
Weird.
ponder like I go, wow, that's for to be on the receiving end of the exam. I could see how it wouldn't be that weird to have either. Like I could get a prostate exam from a female physician.
Oh yeah,
I might even enjoy it. It might feel a
maybe.
little bit less weird.
Maybe you're introducing something new to the bedroom.
Yeah. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to take this idea back home. She'll
So
be
you
like,
got the wife. You're like,
we're not going to see each
make
other
it
again.
2.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to be the doctor though, that's got to be so odd because you have to maintain that professionalism.
Yeah, and
How do
then-
you be a straight doctor?
and then you
who's
go-
digging around in ladies' cavities?
Well, and then like, how do you go home to your wife and you're like, you should really see your doctor about this.
Oh God, that's true. I mean, like. This is quite the tangent, but I mean, you're hyper aware of all the things.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you're down there, you're just like, this is a thing. We should, you should go see your. I don't know.
Do you accidentally, instead of like doing the deed, you're accidentally like give an exam?
You end up doing an exam
you're
'cause
over-
something looks odd.
Yeah. Like how's
Oh
that
God,
work?
that'd be such a curse. Well, and
That'd
okay,
be a major
to get
turnoff.
this off of a very strange topic, I think it's really common for nurses and doctors to be like way too anxious about their kids to where they're like, oh, every little thing is a thing, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh my God,
There's probably some truth to that. I don't know. My wife's a nurse, and I don't know. Okay, so we're in the bathroom. I'm cleaning. Harper just got her ears pierced a couple weeks ago. Super proud of it. But we have to clean her ears before bed, and the wife's in there taking care of herself before bedtime and all that stuff. And we hear Roman in his room because they kind of share a wall. Because you've been in my house. You can hear him run, followed by a thud, followed by him crying, followed by awkward silence. And my wife's just looking like, yep, he fell down. And that was about that. Like, neither one of us went in there to check on him.
the silence wasn't like a concern.
Yeah,
You just
it's
heard
like,
the thud
what
with silence,
kind of-
and it's like, well, he's probably breathing,
Yeah, probably.
or he'll come to. It'll be fine.
Yeah, so like he fell. We just kind of have this thing of like, how long do they cry for and what kind of cry? But normally we just let our kids get hurt and fucking deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Well, otherwise it's like they just come to you for every little thing. Like the wind hurt my face, so I'm gonna come in and bug you. I was like, no, you're fucking fine.
Well,
you're gonna fall. You're gonna get hurt. That's how life works.
Yeah, well, and I have a little bit of empathy for kids when it comes to like their what seems like a meltdown over nothing.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
Because like if you think about it, it's both like experience works the same way as this, but it's also just like simply pain tolerance, and that like you are only as strong as your experiences. So if like getting a paper cut is the worst pain that you've ever felt, then that's the worst pain you've ever felt.
Ever.
Same emotionally. You've never been dumped by a significant other you care a lot about, or you've never lost a loved one or a pet or something like that, then, you know, you just aren't sort of like leveled up in terms of pain and stuff. So, you know, I'm a little more empathetic for when my son hurts himself and I go, ah, crap, that sucks, buddy. That, you know, and I always try and teach him like pain is temporary. So just wait it out. It's going to go away here in a minute. If it doesn't, let us know. You know,
if you start seeing colors.
But yeah. I mean, so you definitely can't like coddle them, but there's still, in my opinion, it's worth being slightly empathetic. You know,
it's a fine line. I mean, like he's fallen down the stairs before, so it's like we've seen him at his worst. So we know if you're just running in a room and you tripped and fell, you're fine.
Oh, for sure.
You know, so like we've been there for the worst. So it's like you can kind of tell by the reaction of how bad it truly is.
Oh, definitely. Wasn't that funny? Like, and we're on a little bit of a parent tangent. Don't worry, we'll talk about cars here. Just like how in tune you become with your kids to where you're like, you can pick up on the tone where you're just like, oh, that's just like a basic injury. Like, that's just like a little scratch. That's a little cut, whatever.
That'll just walk off.
And then when you hear like a certain type of cry, you're like, oh, this might be a little more serious.
Yeah.
There's a little more gasping in there.
Yeah, my wife can pick that up on her newborn. She'll fuss and she'll be like, oh, that means she's hungry. Okay.
Yeah.
And then she'll fuss, you know, and I'm like, oh, she's scared. I'm like, it sounds exactly the fucking same. It sounds exactly the same. It's like she's 5 months old. It's the same fucking noise.
Oh man, that is really funny. Yeah, like, I know it's how the wives develop that. They develop it immediately. I took a little bit longer to kind of get a sense of it.
I still don't know. Our oldest is 5, almost 6. Mm-hmm. Still no clue.
Yeah, I know it's pretty baffling. So on the car thing, we talked a little bit about it earlier when we were wrenching. We always do our podcasts after an evening of wrenching and whatever. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about this earlier, where you know, like you've kind of got that car that's something you've been following, or I wouldn't call it like, maybe it's a dream car for you, maybe it's just sort of aspirational and you're like, I hope to own this at some point.
It's a style of build or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I really want to build a drift car, or I really want to do oval track or something like that. Yeah. So we were talking earlier a little bit about that, and it's kind of funny. We've both you know, sort of silently haven't talked a lot about it together because there's always a hazard in us getting each other riled up about finding things that are like that.
Yeah, then bad decisions are usually made.
Yeah, exactly. And for you, it was the brat. You came across a brat here recently. So for the listeners, you've probably heard us allude to this in the past, but Donnie's been drooling over brats for ages.
So for those of you that don't know or just tuning in, the car that got me into cars was this maybe not get me into the cars, but the first car I kind of fell in love with was I believe it was a 79, so it was a first gen Subaru Brat this guy had in a Speed Hunters, yeah. And he did a 13B swap, and it was a drift missile. And this thing is kind of roached. He cut the wheel wells in it to make bigger tires fit and all that fun jazz. But I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And to this day, I still want. I've been wanting one since I was like 14.
Did it kind of have that like purpose-built race car look to it then? You said that he radiused the fenders and stuff?
He cut the fenders. He just sort of sliced them. Yeah, it was just a purpose-built drift car. Yeah. Just kind of hang it together.
You'll have to try and find the photos of that at some point, and then totally maybe we'll have to share it on the page and allude to this.
Yeah, and I keep looking. I find myself every couple of months like, you have an extra $700 laying around. Like, you should look. I'm like, no. Stay focused on what you have and then get one.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's such a curse of the car guy experience. Because we want to own everything. Every one of us want to be Jay Leno. Like, and we can only drive one thing at a time, but we all want to be Jay Leno. We want to have warehouses full of cars that we love.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the wife
ridiculous.
caught me the other day. What are you looking at? Oh, just shit I shouldn't be spending money on. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, like, yeah, just, second gen Integras.
Yeah.
Something I have no reason to buy. I'd like to own one someday, but something I have no reason to buy right now.
Completely unnecessary,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
No, I do the same thing. Yeah, it
for
never
you,
stops.
It's Gias.
Yeah, so and I don't know if I've ever really talked about this on Dad Mods, but
Maybe.
well, I had a 73 Karmann Ghia. For those who don't know what that is, it's an old Volkswagen air-cooled car. And I had one. I bought it knowing full well that it needed a lot of love, but I was also really new to fabrication. I was learning fabrication at this point. And it was cool. Like, we did a bunch of work on it and got quite a ways with it where doors weren't sagging anymore and it was getting a little more rigid, and we were starting to fix a lot of the rust that was on it and stuff. And then at the time, I got the wild hair up my ass to daily drive a 1978 VW Rabbit.
Yeah, and that came back to bite both of us in the ass.
Yeah, so I got this Rabbit, and it was super fun. It was great. I drove it through the winter, which in retrospect, that's kind of sacrilege because it's a 78. I shouldn't have done that, because it got rust on it. It's being, it's in new hands, and somebody's taking care of it. And I won't go on a tangent about that, how that all kind of came to be. But so that kind of, it took my attention away because it needed a little bit of love. And then the Ghia ended up just kind of sitting, and it just kind of one of those things where it starts sitting and you just don't get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
then
hard to get back to it.
it is, yeah. And then I bought this house. So I wasn't really working over at the garage nearly as much as I was prior. This was sort of after Sean and I were working on stuff. So the car ended up over here, and I hadn't built a garage yet. So it was just kind of like sitting in the yard. And when it does that, when you can't really make progress on a project and it's just sitting there reminding you that you're not making progress, it's terrible. You end up you start resenting it.
Exactly.
And
you almost start finding reasons to get rid of it or reasons not to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I didn't even have an option because it was sitting outside, and I had no garage. And so I didn't really have my tool set up here. Because I don't even remember what we were working at the time. It was something else we were doing in the shop. But yeah, so it was just kind of one of those situations. And I ended up just saying, the hell with it, sell it off. And at that same time, when I put it up for sale, I was like, okay, well, this one's got a lot of rust on it, needs a lot of patchwork. I'm going to take a look and see what's out there for Ghias. Maybe it's smarter to just buy one that is in rust-free or relatively rust-free condition, that runs and drives, because I was doing a turbo Subaru swap into it and all this stuff, and I was like, I'm complicating this.
I remember you had the EJ22T.
Yeah, I had everything. It was like everything you needed, but it was all massive ordeals to set it all up, and I've since built Subarus now, and so now I know a little better about what goes into them, but it was a lot of the unknown. So, all of those things work against you. The more uncomfortable you are with any one of the tasks sort of adds up. You're like, oh, I'm not super comfortable with doing patch panels. I'm not super comfortable with building this engine. I'm not super comfortable with rewiring the whole thing, and so on and so forth. And that just,
and
it all builds.
That's how our Volkswagen bus has been.
Yeah.
It was the first big project we owned, and completely way over my head. And since then, it's like, okay, well, now I have SR swapped to BMW, and I'm looking at the bus like, this is simple.
Oh yeah, it's
there's nothing.
work.
Yeah, there's nothing here.
Yeah,
it's going to take time.
Chop the front end off of your classic car and you weld a new one on, and it goes well. You go, oh fuck, this isn't that bad.
No,
I want to step onto the next thing.
I could do this in 18 months instead of 24 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it was at that point where I kind of made a decision, and it was like, okay, well, I'm either going to buy a Ghia that's in good shape, and I looked at a bunch of them. And what I ended up doing was I was like, okay, well, my buddy Ryan's got this super cool 83 BMW. It was really kind of there aren't a lot in the country that were special like this. This thing was absolutely covered in the rarest of the rare period correct stuff. It was like somebody knew E21s and just nerded the fuck out and got everything down to an Italio Volante steering wheel, which is just like you just can't find them. You Google it, and it's like, yeah, you can find them in Italy, or you know.
And even the motor work was one of a kind. The guy had a nitrous setup hidden under the valve cover.
So it was direct port in every sense of the word. It sprayed it into the intake, as in like it was drilled into the head and sprayed it into the valve, that pocket there.
Yep.
It was wild. And it was a hot rod of a motor. This thing revved like a sport bike engine. It was incredible. He knife edged the crank, lightened the rods, lightened the pistons. It was seriously like a sport bike the way this thing revved. And it was on Delordo side drafts, so it sounded amazing. Anyway, the car was fucking awesome. But so it was between these two things. And so I got the E21, and then played around with that for ages. Ultimately sold that one off, and then it was at the exact same situation where I came back to like, oh, I should take a look at what Gias are out there. Like, I want to get another car, but the wife really also wanted a classic car, like some like old American iron. So that was sort of like the focus, but at the exact same time I was like, maybe I should look and see what's out there for Gias. And so where I'm going with this big long story 10 minutes of conversation here, me leading up to saying the Karmann Ghia is my version of that. And I always find myself, whenever there's like transition to purchasing a new vehicle, or I'm wrapping up a build of one, which that's far from wrapped up.
You're looking at Ghias again.
I find myself looking again.
Every time.
Every single time. And unfortunately, the prices have doubled since the last time, or close to.
Yeah.
They're probably...
everything's going up.
60% higher than they were, somewhere about there. So that's kind of a bummer, but it's kind of funny because incomes are semi-relative to it too. So even though I look back and I go, the first Ghia that I bought, okay, well, my income was here, and then the second time I was looking, and then the third time I was looking, and now it's like, okay, well, there's been these increments. So it's like, okay, I'm not that freaked out about dropping 10 grand on, the next project or whatever. Like, I know that's not the end of the world.
It's part of growing up. And
for sure. So I don't feel so bad about, even at this point where I find myself getting the itch again, of saying like, okay, well, the itch might get scratched in a year or 2 years or whatever. But that's, I think, where I'm heading with it is like, that's going to be what I try and obtain next.
Yeah, and I think that's what we both need to do. We both need to get our like dream cars. We need to get the itch taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
More ways than one.
But it's funny. So I don't know how common it is for all the listeners out there if they have the exact same experience. Because I wonder if that's just like the car guy curse.
It's gotta be.
You're kind of never satisfied.
One car guy that comes straight to mind is Rylan. He probably doesn't listen to this, which is fine. He's rather short.
Who?
Rylan.
Oh, Rylan.
Yeah, he's been talking for years about getting a 300ZX.
Oh, right.
And instead of buying that, he bought that was an E39. Mm-hmm. It's like, and I was trying to LS swap it. It's like, why did you not just get what you wanted?
Yeah.
Get the 300.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think
the legacy and all that. It's like, buy what you want.
Yeah, I guess it might have been pricing. Who knows what his reason was for it? Maybe he was like, okay, it'll be the next car when I can save more. I don't know.
Yeah.
He just really wanted to do burnouts.
Yep.
300ZX, they're a little more temperamental, I think. So it, maybe isn't like the shred machine that he was looking for. Whatever the reasoning was.
But it's the car guy thing of,
and
there's always that one car, and for one reason or another, it kind of gets pushed along, but you keep going back to it.
Yeah. I mean,
every time.
You and I especially have that experience, and maybe other people don't. Like Brian that we had on last week. He, with the Black River Motorsports Park, he's always been building Camaros, and it makes me wonder, like, well, does he have his holy grail of it? Is it a Camaro or something like that, or does he kind of keep purchasing the thing that he wanted? Is he prioritize it? Because he's had some cool shit. He had that Z06 Corvette, which was pretty awesome.
It's true.
And now he's got that, his WS6 is super nice. So, it just kind of makes you wonder, like, does everybody think the same way?
Or did we just mess up and buy a bunch of other stuff instead of buying our dream cars?
Maybe.
Like, I justified not buying a Brat because the same reason I sold a Miata. Like when I sold the Miata, I was really tempted to buy a Brat, and the whole reason I didn't is like, well, I'm just gonna be in the same situation of having a car I can't take my kids in and go have fun with everybody.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I'll put that on the back burner.
Yeah.
And it's been 5 years and I still don't have a Subaru Brat.
Well, you still have kids.
That's true.
If you're using that excuse, then it'll never work for you.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, like you're not going to get rid of the E30,
Oh,
so
God,
you'll
no.
kind of always have a fun thing.
No, my daughter would murder me in my sleep if I got. Okay, so my oldest, she'll be 6 next month. Loves that car probably more than I do.
Yeah, loves it more than you.
Oh yeah, easily. I'm a shit dad, so yeah. No, probably because she's gotten to drive it a couple of times, and yeah. So she actually rode in it the other day for like the first time since it's been sitting on the road or sitting in the garage and all that, and she was super excited. I just knew. I'm like, she's never experienced Boost before. This is gonna be so much fun.
Oh God, that's cool. Like, so you can remember the moment when she's had her first taste of what a forced induction car is like.
We go ripping up Cody Street, and she gets tossed in the back of the seat, and I look over, and she's just laughing her ass off. And she's like, "I love it. Let's do it again. I want to go fast." And I'm just,
no shit. Yikes.
and then,
That's cool.
Like tonight, every time I'm out there in the garage, it doesn't matter. She wants to be out there with me working on it, and I know that's just gonna be the car I have forever, and it'll get passed on to the kids and stuff. So
yeah, you should. And that's a good way to look at it too, where it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to be your car forever. It could always get passed on to the kids. You can detune that thing. You know, you could turn the boost down to 5 pounds or something. And
Dad, why are you taking all the fun parts off? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the worst thing. You know, like and somebody we're hoping to have on here before too long is Pat. Pat's a good example of that, and he's got a 510. He's got a 2-door 510 that
I think it's a 4-door.
Oh, it could be.
I'm pretty sure it's a 4-door.
Okay.
Either way.
So he's got his 510, and that was always going to be going to his son. And as long as I've known Pat, he's talked about how this car is going to end up being his son's first car, and it's cool. Like it's a really fucking cool car.
I will probably go on a limb here and say Pat's 510 might be my favorite car in the area.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's so fucking. It's purpose built. It's got a ton of character. It's got a great story to it, and it is a blast on the track. Mm-hmm. He knows that car.
Well, he's been building 510s. You know, him and his ex-wife, they had that orange one.
Yep.
They built together, and that thing it's a rocket. It's a turbo KA. It is an absolute rocket.
Well, that's what's in his 510 is the KA.
Yeah,
and
he's pulled that SR up and something else.
I got to ride along with him in the at Power Cruise and whatnot, and you could just tell he like there's no worry from my end of like trusting him or anything like that. He just ripping through the gears, and the whole time we're both just smiling.
Yeah,
felt like a little kid again.
So Pat's a good example of somebody who's kind of got that same idea, same plan of like maybe this will get handed down to the kids. For me, I don't know what that would be. Because like
Probably
right now,
the 4Runner because he loves monster trucks.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, well, maybe I build an XJ at some point, like an off-road toy.
He would love that.
Yeah, and that might be something because if I build an XJ, it's going to have a cage in it and an XO cage or something like that.
Go up to the off-road park.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that that's in my future because of how much that kid loves off-roading stuff. That's all he wants to watch. He's either watching RC cars that are off-roading, or he wants to watch like Jeeps and stuff, like Tough Truck Challenge kind of stuff.
Freaking cool.
Yeah, my son is a fucking motorhead. Like it's crazy. And I full disclosure, I may have wired him for it because when he was a baby, we watched Hoonigan videos every single day.
Shit. So that explains why my kids like metal music then.
For sure.
Because they're fussy, and I'm like, I'm going to turn up something that's more mad than you.
Yes.
And then even Ember's our newborn. Well, is she newborn?
Newish born.
Newish born, yeah.
Yeah. She's an infant.
Yeah, or an infant. Even her, if I have, who'd I have? I had Trivium playing the other day. And she's over in her little swing, and she's got this kind of little grin on her. She's kicking her feet, and I'd look at my wife like, you are fucked.
Yeah, and with each one you've said that. Like you'll
you
tell me a
are
story about
so
how
in
like
trouble.
your daughter was the first one, and you looked at your wife, and she's like, the kiddo's jamming out, and you're like, you're fucked. And then your son, and they're both jamming out, and the
God.
daughter's headbanging, and the son's just sitting there doing this, like. You're fucked, and now the third one.
Yeah, I might be
Yeah.
a bad influence. So
I don't know if it's bad though, because your kids, like, they aren't little psychos.
no, they're not. It's a good way to
Like-
get out aggression and like hyperness.
It's so funny because your daughter is like this little spazzy, go fast little, but she's also not an asshole. Like she's got really
well,
good energy.
Yeah, sometimes.
Like she's a really sweet little kid who also loves metal music. Like our generation's metal
So-
music, not Black Sabbath. She likes Kill Switch Engage and
that reminds me.
Lamb of God.
She'll be, and I don't know the wife's coming with. I know Waldo said he was our friend Jim Matson, James Matson. Waldo,
He's been on the
yep,
podcast.
awesome dude. I know he's in, but I'm gonna take her to go see Static X,
I love it.
and I think she's just gonna lose her little mind.
Yeah, she's gonna love it
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
She might get a little
But-
freaked out by Mushroom Head.
Anyway, so where we were going with like the whole kids acquiring the cars thing, for sure, like I could see her being like the right person to own the BMW
think
because
so.
she's grown up in it.
She's got wrench time into it.
Yeah.
She's wrenched on that car. I have. Actually,
cool.
she's in one of our videos where I can't remember what I was doing. It was with the M20 though.
You're maybe pulling the motor. It's in the year of the
Something.
E30
Yeah.
series that
But
she's in
she's
little
in one of them
snippet.
is sitting in the engine bay wrenching. Like tonight. So tonight we actually may have found out what's wrong with the car.
Hopefully,
I don't know if I just shared this before in the past, but we found a bad worm gear clamp connecting the fuel pump to the fuel pump assembly, which is why it was running like shit. It's running better.
So if you guys ever have a lean condition with your vehicle where it seems like you're not getting good fuel pressure or whatever,
White plugs.
what you should check, especially if you've changed out the fuel pump, I
feel
the
attacked.
hardest fuel leak to identify is one that is internal of the tank. So your fuel pump, if it's inside the tank, is in a basket assembly, and the top of that basket assembly, there's always a rubber hose that runs from the pump itself to the top of the basket. And in our situation, that was the leak in Donnie's car.
Yep. So Walbro, for some reason, I don't know why. I'm not knocking them. The pump works really well. But they provide you with 2 worm gear clamps.
Yeah, worm gear. And worm gear is like the typical twisty
Yes.
style that's like...
It's like a self-tapping screw on a piece of thin metal.
It's a strap
that's
of steel
strapped-
with just
yeah.
little slots.
Yep.
Yeah. Really basic. They're known to like loosen up on high pressure stuff.
Yeah, and this is a 255. So like I should see if I block off the return.
100 PSI.
Exactly. A worm gear clamp is not designed for that. It might be good to 30 PSI, we'll say, ish, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
it's good for coolant systems.
I would wager like it might tolerate 100 PSI, but I feel like eventually, unless it's somehow forced to stay there, I would assume that it would loosen up at some point.
Yeah. So found that. Ended up putting high pressure fuel clamps on there, which is for like exactly what they're designed for. They're good, I think, up to like 60 or 65 PSI, guaranteed. That took care of our fuel pressure problem. We finally saw the correct pressure at the fuel rail. And she's been running really good, but under boost, once she's warm, it's hesitant. That's the
Yeah.
only way to describe it.
It's pulling timing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And so tonight, we were doing a little bit of digging and checked all the timing components, which is spot on, thankfully. But pulled the spark plugs, and this time we had one cylinder that was lean.
And not terribly lean, just a little bit
Just
lean.
a little lean.
But
So-
enough that it might see knock.
Exactly. It's cylinder 2, which oddly enough, where the knock sensor sits on the block is with cylinder 2. And if that fuel injector is sticking or hesitant or anything like that, it could cause a little bit of a knock, wanting to pull timing all of a sudden. And hopefully that's all the problem is. Something stupid.
Yeah, let's hope
like
so.
a clogged fuel injector.
Yeah, it's that's hopefully all that it's going to come down to, swapping that thing out.
If it pops out of the fuel rail.
Yeah, but I'll say like when it's cold, the few times like you'll get a few like really good runs out of it before it actually starts to pull timing on it. So I don't know what's occurring within that time, if it's like it's not fully warmed up yet, so it's still running extra fuel enrichment, and maybe that's helping that cylinder to not be quite as lean. I don't know. It's one of those things. Cars are always just like a battle to figure out.
As long as we figure it out before the snow comes.
Yeah, but it's super fun. Like it feels like 90% when it's running really good. I feel like there's still a little bit missing from it because I've driven enough of these SR swap cars that it's like, okay, that feels like it's just a tiny bit down on power, but it's damn close.
It's damn close,
and it's fun.
Yeah, fun doesn't even quite describe it for me. Mm-hmm. It's I don't know if it's the fastest car I've owned now, but it's definitely the funnest car.
It's the fastest you've owned.
Probably.
You mean right now?
Right now, yeah.
Oh, your WRX was faster, just by a skosh.
Yeah, maybe, but this
is... once you get this thing running correctly, it will be way faster.
This is definitely the funnest. And I've had a couple of like oh shit moments because I'm still getting used to the car. One of them was actually on Monday. So they're doing a bunch of construction in town. We have what's called the Can of Worms. It's a clusterfuck of a highway system that they're tearing down and all that. So there's a bunch of construction. And when I'm leaving work, I have a hell of a lot more traffic now to deal with. And we're sitting at the stop sign and waiting for this semi to pull out in traffic, and he's not going. So we're sitting there for like 5 minutes before he finally pulls out in traffic. And I kind of did the nice Minnesota stop where I slowed down, but I didn't take my turn at the stop sign, and I just goosed it in first. Well, I work in a very industrial setting, and there's loose sand and stuff on the street and stuff. And I hit a little bit of loose sand pulling out into traffic, and I hit boost right when I hit that loose sand, and the back end of the car just goes sideways. And I just ripped it into second, and it was not fully warmed up yet, which is why it was running great, and it just ripped off down Garfield, and
nice.
I just laughed.
You got that sense of what's
like,
coming.
So much fun.
It's the best. I mean,
it's so much fun.
It's funny, like, for how much shit SR20s get, mostly because, like, some of them sound terrible.
Yeah.
You know, like, not all of them sound as good as your car. Some of them
Shout
sound
out to
horrible.
Cody Hendrickson for making my car sound awesome.
No doubt. That dude can fabricate.
Yeah. Sounds great.
So, yeah, like, the SR20 is really a fantastic motor. I feel like it's surprising that it doesn't end up in more chassis. Like, I cannot believe that nobody's built a Model A with an SR20 in it, at least to my knowledge.
The only thing I can think of is maybe the price tag, because you're importing. Most of them are imported.
The SR20 is one of the cheapest performance turbo engines you can import.
Yeah, but a lot of people are just swapping $300 truck engines into literally everything right now.
That's true. You know what? I'm thinking about it as in like 2007.
Yeah.
LSs weren't nearly that common of a swap. And no, you're right. You're right. Like,
nowadays, people are like, well, I have this.
All of those people are not.
This 1500 sitting in back.
That's true. That is such a good point.
Again, shout out to Cody Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Same exact example. He has a 1500 sitting in front of, I think it's a 1500.
He has like 3 LSs in his garage.
Yeah, and he's like, that one came out of that truck that's rusting out my driveway.
And I've told him, let me know, because I need a couple.
So I think that's why is the price tag. Like, they're a super cool motor. They're a lot of fun. They're just a blast and whatnot and whatever they're in. But because they're imported, they still hold a little bit higher value versus a 5.3. And a lot of people are like, well, I'll just go with displacement.
Yeah. So, okay, now back to the Brat, because we're horrible at staying on topic.
Oh, God, we've been all over the place tonight.
So,
everything from gynecology to LS motors.
Yeah. So, we were making the conversation about, like, sort of the car guy curse of like what is there a car that chases you? Is that like everybody's experience?
Great White Buffalo.
Yeah. What?
The Great White Buffalo.
Is that what does that do?
That's actually from a movie called Hot Tub Time Machine, which you should watch. It's a very funny John Cusack film. but it's kind of like the one that got away, or like the magical one. Yeah. So for me, it's the Brat. So the Gia.
You had said that the Brat is your dream car.
I would say it's my dream car. It's the one I've wanted the longest.
So okay,
like the E30 was a happy accident.
Yeah.
Like straight up, like I'm gonna buy this because my friends tell me I should buy it, and like I was a little unsure. And then after kind of modifying it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally do some fun stuff with this. And now it's just a keeper.
So the reason I ask about the dream car thing is like some people, they set their dream cars like not attainable.
And other people, but like I want a Lamborghini Diablo.
And you know, it's funny. I'm going to keep referencing this conversation because it was such a good conversation with Brian, where he was talking about like setting goals like realistically, and I 100% agree with that. Like I've always set my dream cars to be like attainable.
Yeah,
like a Del Sol, and you guys are gonna laugh. A Del Sol was my dream car at one point because I have a specific memory in high school where I remember seeing a Del Sol on the highway, and I was like, "Oh, that is so cool looking, 2-seater, removable targa top, really cool, stylish little Honda car." And at the time, Hondas were the shit. That's what everybody wanted to build. Well, everybody who was younger, everyone was a millennial.
Yeah.
So. That was like my dream car, and then I purchased it and blah, 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 blah. So I didn't go straight to, I want a Countach or something like that.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people are like, oh, I want a Corvette. Like even that's an obtainable goal.
Very obtainable.
That's very realistic. But the people that are like, I want a Ferrari 458 or
I want a McLaren or whatever.
Yeah.
That's tough. Like you're
like,
if that's your goal.
Like if we're gonna go unrealistic, I'd love to have an XJ220. Mm-hmm. I'm never gonna be able to afford one. But I'd love to have one.
Who makes an XJ220?
Jaguar.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's why I ask is like, is the Brat a dream car in the sense that like it's an attainable dream car, or is that genuinely what like you dream, you aspire to own?
Both. It's funny, you know, like we like any couple or any friendship or whatever, you know, we've joked around about like if I won the lottery. If I won the lottery, like, yeah, I'd probably have a Ferrari 458. It's the funnest car I've ever driven in my life. Mm-hmm. I would totally daily one if I could afford to. But the very first thing I'm probably going to buy is a Subaru Brat.
Yeah,
like, I get that. I would totally hunt one down and be like, that's exactly what I want.
That's so funny.
And I'd probably go buy 4 of them because I could.
100% a Gia would be the first thing I buy. Yeah, it's kind of funny to look at that way.
So I think that makes it the ultimate dream car then.
Yeah.
If money wasn't an option, what would you first go out and purchase? Well, for me, it's still a Subaru Brat, so therefore it's got to be my ultimate dream car.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool way to look at it. So, and the reason why I prefaced that way was just like, so what you know, as I alluded to earlier with like the Del Sol, like I've always tried to set my dream car like within a certain level of attainability. Now, a Carmen Gia is not my dream car. It is a like I see myself owning it. I feel like it's my style. It's a car that I've grown to love.
It's the Porsche. I can never remember the fucking numbers though. I can picture the car because almost all of them came in silver.
A lot of them did,
and they're convertible.
Not all of them are convertible.
Oh, I thought they were all convertible.
Yeah. So Porsche 356.
356.
The 356 is the car before the 911. So it's super curvy. It kind of looks like a Jetson spaceship.
So that's your if money was no option car. Huh?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I don't even know what mine would be.
I think for me, like I'd want to be able to modify it, so I feel like the later model 356 would be better. So that's like a 60s car.
Okay.
Just because like I would love an A or a pre-A even, which we're talking like 50s. We're talking like the early ones where they are hand formed aluminum. Dream
are those
like that? But we're talking $500,000 probably.
Are those the ones that Enzo Ferrari formed by hand in his front yard?
You mean
is that,
it's not a Ferrari?
No,
it's
I'm sorry, I'm getting my cars confused.
Ferdinand Porsche.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the California. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good.
The early Californias, if I remember correctly, actually formed them.
That's awesome.
Himself in his yard, if I remember correctly.
That's pretty
I'm
awesome.
sorry, I'm getting my classic cars mixed up a little bit.
Okay, well, like some of the curves are similar, but yeah. So the The 356, it was, so the earliest, the Porsches
didn't
were
know
still
they made
designed
them-
by Mr. Porsche.
I didn't realize those were built back that late, though.
So I don't remember the exact year, and it'd be nice if we had the internet out here working reliably where I could look it up real
Yeah,
quick.
so it
I don't
kinda
remember
is.
exactly what the year was. And I know Porsches were built, I think, before the Bug prototypes and stuff, but the Bugs were, I think, built in the early 50s. I can't. Here's the thing: we need.
I can't
our
remember when they went for
internet
production.
connection
I
out here.
know. I know the purpose behind them.
Yeah.
'Cause-
So, anyway, I wouldn't necessarily want one of the earliest versions. So
No, that makes sense.
because I would still want to be able to modify, and I got kind of an idea in my head of what I would want to do with one, but. I still feel like, in terms of dream cars, that's not completely unrealistic. Yes, you're going to spend $30,000, $40,000 on a Roach, and you're going to have to build it. But that's still, in my opinion, in my eyes, is like, well, that's the game. You want something
Yeah.
that's rare as fuck and, really collectible. Yeah, you're going to pay a bunch of money.
Yeah, and even at 30 or 40, I mean.
Totally still attainable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean.
30 or 40 starting. We're talking
Well,
that's 30 or 40 for a rusted out
Yeah,
one.
we're talking. This is going to be $100,000 build
For sure.
easily.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, over the course of, let's say, 5 years, isn't completely unattainable.
It's not, it's not terrible. It's if for somebody who, like, if you have disposable income or if you're willing to sacrifice to make it happen,
Yeah,
if it's
I mean,
that
that's
much
a
of a
lot of
dream of
ramen
yours,
noodles, but
that's
that's a ton
that's
of
sacrificing not just for you, but you got
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that have to happen to make that. But well, I guess it depends. Maybe you have a really good job.
Would you ever settle for a kit car though?
I've thought about it.
I've seen a lot of kits. They look pretty good.
Yeah, there is quite a few different kit versions. There's the fiberglass ones, and I want to say
are those based
that
off the Bug chassis.
yes. So
Are they? Okay.
they
I couldn't remember. or
it's
not.
all very similar. The floor pans, the engines, they're different. It's not like you're sticking a 1500 cc Beetle engine or Ghia engine into the back of. It's not the same thing.
Okay.
They're slightly different. But the floor pans, the bodies are obviously very different. But it's the similar principle. Similar concept. That's why Jeremy Clarkson always would crack jokes about like early Porsches, like nice Beetle. You're driving a Beetle.
Yeah, but this is the same guy that spent like 500,000 pounds on a fucking replica boat too. So.
Oh, for
Oh
sure.
no,
Well,
I would think it was 100,000 pounds, but yeah, some dumb amount of money.
I love Clarkson. I
Yeah,
don't.
he's
I don't give
a
shit.
big buffoon.
And that's a perfectly reasonable criticism. I understand anybody's criticism of kit cars because it's not the actual thing. It is essentially a knockoff.
no, but does it serve its purpose?
I think I'd consider something along those lines, but I would have to be like, because it's $30,000 for a replica, so.
That gets you into the Roach territory.
Yeah, that is getting it. It's knocking on the door of actually owning a legitimate car, and then you need to spend the exorbitant amounts of money to build from there. But yeah, I don't know. I think I guess like that's probably the debate that I'd have at that point. And at some point in my life, I want to own that. So, to volley this back to you, do you have anything along those lines that's like that? Because
Nothing.
the Brat is it's pretty attainable.
Oh yeah, that's like a $3,000 car.
Don't wait 10 years to get one
Oh,
because
God, no.
it's going to turn into that where it's like hard as fuck to find.
I don't really have anything that's like on that borderline of not being achievable. Because like I grew up loving a lot of 90s cars. I mean, a lot of the magazines I read growing up and stuff were like EG hatches and second gen Integras and Supras. Like even a Mark III Supra, like a 96 Supra, is not that expensive.
See, this is really cool to me, and this is where you and I differ. And this is one of my favorite things about our channel, too, for that matter, is like you can see right now the difference in our tastes are, well, let me reword that. Our appreciations are very fluid, as in You look at the shoebox and you'd probably be like, yeah, it's cool, but I would spend that money on XYZ.
Yeah.
And I look at now granted, I look at the E30 and I go, hell yeah, I would own one of those someday. So it's a little bit different, but.
Well, I'm not saying I would totally own a shoebox and cruise around with my family in it, like in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying.
So I love old shit. That's my jam. Old as hell is my jam.
I guess
and you're dreaming about 90s cars, which is super cool.
I guess my Porsche would be a 59 El Camino.
Oh, okay.
So that to me would be the like it's achievable, but it's not achievable car.
Okay.
That is actually the very first car I ever liked, ever loved. Growing up, and I still have a bunch of them. I had an entire wall in my bedroom dedicated to El Caminos, models, Hot Wheels cars, all of that. I've only seen two in my life because the 59 was such a rare year of El Camino. It was the only year that really looked like a classic car. In 60, they changed the body style completely. And I saw two at the 1 year we went to back to the 50s, to the point where like we saw one pull in and we stopped where we were looking. I told my wife, I'm like, we're walking now. She's like, what? I'm like, I have to go. You don't understand. I've never seen at this point. This was, God, Ember wasn't born. I think Roman was born. So this was maybe 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like he was super young, and like I told her. So at this point, I was 28, 29. Like I've never seen one in person in my life. And
it's a rare car.
And this is a car I've loved since I was like 10. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so we hunted it down, and then I saw another one, and I was just like a little kid. She's like, "What's those? It's a fucked up truck. Like it's cool and all, but it's a fucked up truck. What are you doing?" I'm like, "You don't understand. This is an extremely rare car. I think restored, you're looking like 150, maybe 200.
It's a single year production.
Yeah,
like you literally have only 1 year of this style, and then they completely redesigned.
They have that whole like Cadillac back into them.
Oh yeah,
it's God, they're gorgeous.
And it's cool because they changed it in 1960. So in the 60s everything went to looking like a spaceship, and previous to that everything had like fins and big over fenders.
It had flair.
Big flare, like big 50s.
It was
gorgeous,
kind of in your face, like look at me.
American graffiti flair.
Yeah. So
it's
like
amazing.
That would be my Porsche. Would be the 59 El Camino.
That might be a little higher than a Porsche.
I've seen,
as far as finding.
Last time I haven't looked in ages, but they were more than 30,000 for a road.
Yeah, I believe it.
They were like in the 50s or 60s last time I checked, and that was years ago. I don't even bother looking now because it's. The older I get, the more unattainable that is.
Well, and that's the way it goes.
There's just no way.
Lincoln Zephyrs are a little bit like that for me, too. Not that it's like the Zephyr is something I want to own someday. It's one of those cars that I really appreciate from a distance. Whereas I go like, it's distance in the sense that like, I'm not going to own this someday. Zephyrs are just like the most gorgeous old lead sleds. Like they are the Al Capone looking cars, massive grill in the front of it, big swooping fenders, and a lot of people will chop them and stuff too. And they're masterpiece of a car. But it's one of those things where I go back to the 50s and I go, somebody had the presence of mind to scoop this up at whatever point. Mm-hmm. This is fucking gorgeous, but it's not for me. I look at the 50s cars that are within my reach. Shoebox is within my reach.
and I think that's how I ended up with the E30. Mm-hmm. Is I wanted something kind of older, but not.
Yeah.
And so I got the car that has an identity crisis and kind of falls in the middle. It's like
identity crisis. That's good.
Well, it's an 80s car, so it's got some of the classic features, but it doesn't handle like a classic car. It handles like a 90s car.
Well, honestly, right now that handles like
now it handles better than a 90s
It handles
car.
like a BRZ.
Oh,
I mean,
now, yeah.
that
Well, you've driven it
so
without the power steering in it. And
that's
stuff now.
something we got to talk a little bit about too. And it's what I want to kind of wrap this conversation, I think, because it's
tangent.
it's absolutely not. Like, I think that this is very like valuable, like very cohesive conversation. Now we're not on rambling off talking about our kids.
Yeah.
So in closing, like, yeah, for sure. I think that's like the car guy curse of like, all of us, even though we're building something, there might be something else that's kind of just outside of our reach, or it's just like we're working towards this,
There's always just that thought of like, oh, if I just set aside X amount of dollars instead of spending it on the project I'm building now, I could have this project.
100%.
Which is it's so dumb.
It's dumb, but it's honestly, I think it enriches. And this is gonna sound preachy, but as a car guy, I think that kind of thing, I think, is so fucking enriching, being a car guy and having these things to work towards, because it's work.
Oh yeah, it's
whether it's like you're working your job to generate money to purchase something, you're appreciating the process to attain the thing. And especially for a builder, you're maybe building towards the goal or whatever. It's hard work, and hard work is
literally said to my wife, I'm like, my life makes no fucking sense. She's like, how so? I'm like, well, I go to work, I fix trucks, and then I come home, and then I fix my BMW to relax.
Yeah, it's an obsession.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. It's, I don't know.
No
it's
sense.
a blessing and a curse, but
It is.
The older I get, the more I think like there's anybody who has a passion, I think, has a lot more appreciation for life, a lot more spice of life,
Oh yeah, I wouldn't change it for anything, because like, I don't know, the car community is just, it's one of a kind.
It's wonderful. I have met
not like
the
football
best
fans.
people because of it.
It's not like, people who like to metal detect or whatever hobby you're into. It's a completely different breed of people. And it's but it's glorious. It's something about like going to an event like Power Cruise, where you have this melting pot of modified trucks and imports and swapped whatever, and like everyone's just getting along, everyone's just doing their thing at the same time, and you're almost like a part of a big family for that whole weekend.
Oh, for sure.
And it's
we're all
there's nothing else
united.
like it.
We're all united with our appreciation for cars and trucks.
Exactly.
And, whatever.
You just don't see that in other hobbies.
So and I think what makes it so special is that it's a hobby that asks a lot of you, financially, physically,
all that. Yeah.
Your intellect. Like, if you want to build shit, you've got to learn and you got to research, and there's just a lot that goes into it. And I think that really makes for a unique type of person because of the level of dedication you have to have
absolutely.
to whatever the goal is. So in our case, like, we took a 1950 car. People are terrified to change the oil. There are humans out there who are intimidated by oil changes.
Oh, yeah.
And we chopped the front end of that off, chopped the front end off of an S10, welded this one onto the front of it, fit the body, fit the engine, fit the steering system,
the engine's
everything.
the engine's not from an S10 or a shoebox Ford.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a Frankenstein build.
So we did all of that, and to anybody on the outside, they look at that and they go, "Jesus Christ, you did all of that? Why?" When it's just for driving on the street, and we go, we feel alive, like it's a part of us, It's in my blood. I go to bed thinking about cars and motorcycles and projects. I wake up thinking about cars and projects and motorcycles.
So I remember the first time like the BMW started running proper, like after the fuel issue and all that, and we finally got to kind of beat on it just a little bit. I remember walking inside, my wife's like, "Why we had the big smile?" I'm like, "I finally have my $10,000 smile."
Yeah.
And she just looked at me. She's like,
"You keep putting it into money sense."
She just looked at me. She's like, "You're an idiot." I'm like, "No, you don't get it. Like, it's totally worth it." I would if I wouldn't change anything. If I could go back, I'd do it all over again.
Oh, for sure.
I just replace those fucking clamps.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Well, so to circle back around to the E30, Yeah, so it's running and driving much better. We've been taking it out and we've been kind of like just testing it, trying to figure out what's going on with it. And what we had talked about just a moment ago was the handling. I had an opportunity and I drove a 77 Porsche 911 across the country. I did 2,500 miles in, God, what was it? 3 days, 4 days, something like that.
I know you were gone for an entire week, but
I was gone
that
for like
was
a
hanging
week,
out too and all that stuff.
So it was literally like the best experience of my life, personal in the sense that like not counting seeing my children being born,
not including being a dad,
personal in that sense of like excluding all of those things.
Adventures.
It was fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
It was the most amazing experience, and it was a masterpiece of a 911. So I got a chance to drive it through I-90, and if anybody who's familiar with I-90, 94, we're talking like that's the stretch of road that runs through the mountains on your way out west. So it goes through. I went through I think it was North Dakota. Yeah, I think I went through North Dakota, Montana, Idaho, and then into Washington, that route. And then I got to take it down 101, the little patch of tarmac that hugs the coast.
That's on my bucket list.
And down to Seaside, Cannon Beach in particular. And it was incredible. It was absolutely breathtaking. And I'll maybe one of these podcasts I'll actually tell the whole story of that trip. But so in terms of handling, those 70s Porsches are incredible. Like, they are manual brakes, manual steering, and it's weird because it doesn't feel like it totally. Even though you've got big meaty tires on these things, for a 70s car, they had pretty meaty, at least this one had some meats on it. It doesn't feel that heavy, and the braking feels like an assisted braking system, but with much more feedback.
Okay, so you can actually feel the road as you're driving.
Oh, it's amazing. So it carves, like the steering's super sharp. It's got quick ratio, and the brakes are they bite beautifully, but they have like the appropriate amount of pressure that you're applying with your leg yields the appropriate amount of stopping of the car. Perfect. It was just weird. Like, I drove it and I'm like, am I living in a fantasy right now? Because this all feels too perfect. I mean, I'm talking, and I'll tell the story. I promise. I'll tell the story. We'll do a podcast about it. But I'm shredding through the mountains, 80 miles an hour, just carving these beautiful little strips through it was fucking amazing. And that's where I got the sense of like what it blew away my sense of what a car is supposed to handle like, because it was so good. Like, it was just such a good car to drive. Where I'm going with this is that I felt a touch of that with the E30. So you swapped in a Z3 rack.
Yep.
And now, granted, the brakes got to get bled and stuff, so those didn't feel quite correct.
Figure that out. So
the 100%, the way that the E30 handles now feels very reminiscent of that Porsche.
That's awesome.
Like, it is so sharp now.
So you know me, obviously, and
do I?
you know my driving style. That's why. So a lot of people when they go to modify a car, they're like, well, I want to go fast. Build the car first and then go fast. That makes sense. Like, focus on the brakes, the steering, all that kind of stuff. And we've tossed different suspension setup in there. It's got the Coney shocks with the Vogelin springs, all that kind of things. It's finally got all the poly bushings in, which definitely help. And then the steering rack, like, I'm a corners guy. Like
sure.
That's my number one priority. Having it hit boost and having SR and all that stuff, that's all like the cherry on top. And like, I don't know, like Jake Cook is my playground.
For sure.
I'm not a drag guy. I don't mind going fast in a straight line, but it's like I like twisties.
So for the listeners, you'll occasionally hear us reference Jay Cook. Jay Cook is...
How do we...
So if you ever heard of the Tail of the Dragon, which most people have probably heard of the Tail of the Dragon, or
I have not heard of the Tail of the Dragon.
how, as a car guy, have you not heard of the Tail of the Dragon?
I don't know. I'm not on the internet a whole
Okay,
lot, which
so-
is weird because I help out with this.
You're gonna Google that.
Okay, Tail of the Dragon.
After this, we're gonna Google it so you can see a picture of it. It's
Oh,
a
wait, I think I know what you're talking
amazing, very curvy stretch of I don't know. It's like 20
Yeah.
miles or something like that. It's
East, right?
Yep, it's
okay.
out east.
Yep. Okay, I think I know what you're talking about now.
amazing road. So Duluth has its own version, and it's called J. Cook Park. One of the most beautiful parts of it, and you really have to be respectful, because there are people that walk on it.
Hike,
It's
biking,
a
all that
very
stuff.
it's a very scenic drive, so you do get some slow people.
A
So you
lot
really
of motorcyclists too.
so you can't be an asshole when you're out there driving unless it's in the middle of the night. If it's in the middle of the night, then you're taking your own risks, and it's a little bit different. You can go a little faster.
You don't really
But-
need to go fast.
But it's a 45 mile an hour road, and 45 miles an hour around some of those corners is hauling ass.
Oh yeah.
Like they'll put up their
Totally.
warnings of 20 mile an hour or 15 mile an hour corners, and you take that thing at 35, 40, and you are screeching tires, and you are like, so it's great because you're not actually speeding. But anyway, so it's a beautiful road.
Yeah, and so like that. So we have the comparison from last year with the power steering and the different shocks and the springs and all that kind of stuff. I am really curious to see how it handles through there now. Because
Pretty good, I bet.
The little bit I've gotten to actually drive the car. Granted, I don't have the alignment done on it yet. Thanks, Firestone, for screwing that up. I can't wait. Like it handles. The Miata didn't have power steering, and I love the way that handled. So to be able to push the BMW when I get to that point is just. It's gonna be incredible because the little bit I have done with it, it like you said, it just handles so well. You feel everything in the corners.
So what I liked about the E30, and I remember what the Miata felt like to drive. What I feel like makes the E30 better was one, I really love the way that I love the turn in. Like, for whatever reason, the E30 feels very sharp off the center point. So
Yes.
that initial turn in,
Well-
there's no delay in. It feels really sharp.
So we put a Z3 steering rack in it from a '99 BMW. That's actually 3 turns lock to lock versus the old E30 rack, which was 4. Which you'd think one full turn isn't that much, but it really is. Like
Yeah.
you can definitely tell going through the corners. Like, oh, you barely move the steering wheel and you're going in whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And
that turn in is just perfect. But yeah, it's a mixture of that, and also like I love the Miata is like it's driving a slow car fast.
Yes.
And that's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience. If you ever get a chance to like
It's
drive something like a Miata, do it.
Yeah,
They're
it's
a blast.
the perfect place to start too. The Miata is just a souped up go kart.
Yeah, essentially.
That's all it is.
Whereas, like, when we've driven the E30 and it's running, especially when it's running correctly, and you get on it a little bit with that SR in it, it now has that energy that feels appropriate to the way that it handles and steers. So you're just like,
completely
oh,
agree.
this feels balanced. So once you get it completely dialed in, I think it's going to be just right, where you're like, you can take it to the edge of grip where you're like breaking tires loose, but you're not necessarily going to kill yourself driving hard with it.
Yeah, and I've gotten to push it a little bit. I'll admit I went through the nice portion of Skyline one time with it, and it's got the one thing I hate about it when we did the SCCA night was it wouldn't get out of its own way. Like it handled fine in the corners. See, I told you. It would handle fine in the corners, but there was no gusto to get out of the corner to make it to the next one. And now it finally has that.
Yeah.
You can handle perfectly in the corner and then put your foot down and like, sweet, we're going to hurry up and get to the next one now.
Well, and I think this is something that we're going to have to do videos on.
Oh, absolutely.
Of talking about why we think the SR20 is one of the best swaps you'll ever do in an E30. because the car is so light now.
Yeah, it's super
It's
light.
crazy. So I had driven it with the M20 in it, and yeah, it was fun, but it definitely felt like you had a truck engine in the front of it.
Yeah. That's a good
Whereas
way to
if you
put
had
it.
an LS in it, it'd be a totally different can of worms. When I say truck engine, I mean like it feels like an anchor. Honestly,
Yeah.
that M20 was pretty. It was a lot of weight, like over the front tires, so the weight distribution wasn't perfect. And it just didn't have the revs. It just didn't feel quite right. I'm sure the IS is a different can of worms. The IS is like it revs up better. It's a straight six that makes more power.
It can
and
actually accelerate on
Yeah.
the highway.
But the SR, I feel like took some weight off of the front of that thing. It sits a little bit higher too, so it tells me that
does.
it's taken some weight off the front. It feels so damn balanced,
It feels balanced.
and it has like this torque.
Yes. So like even out of boost, it still feels torquey, which I love because like the old M20, like that's what everyone's like. Oh, it's such a torquey motor though. Like it falls off flat at the high end, but at the low end, it's fantastic. I have to disagree. The SR, like even staying out of boost, it still is torqueier than the M20 is.
Yeah.
Like so, overall, it's just a better driving experience now.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it seems like a fantastic drivetrain. But yeah, man. So that's kind of where things are at. We're still trying to work out.
I think it's hopefully just that injector,
Yeah, let's
Hopefully.
hope so.
but we'll find out Sunday.
Yeah, and so for you guys, we're sitting at a little over an hour now, so we might as well close things out here. So the where things are at with the shoebox is not a lot has changed with it. It's been nice to just like drive it, not be in a state of like hustle. So
You can enjoy it.
yeah, I really
Yeah.
can. It's wonderful. Like I still got the transmission issues where it shifts way too hard and way too high in the RPMs, and that's silly, but it's fine. Like if you guys are following us on Instagram, please do. We're at Dad Mods Official on Instagram. I'll occasionally just throw up some photos, or I'll do like some story videos and stuff of just cruising around in it. And it's it's been lovely. I've taken it for beer runs. I've taken it over to go have a drink down at one of our local bars. I've taken on just little cruises, and it's just so nice to
It's-
just hop in it and go.
The one time I've actually gotten to kind of just cruise with you in it, it's despite being a 71-year-old car, it doesn't feel like it.
So let me tell you, dude.
It does not feel like a 70-year-old car.
If you are fed up with the steering system on a 1949 to 1951 Ford car, fucking chop that front end off and put that S10 front end on.
That night and day difference.
Oh my God. Now, I am sincerely thinking about actually doing coilovers in the front of that and doing something different with the rear end to make it handle good.
That would be fantastic.
Because the steering system is so decent. Like S10s aren't perfect, but when you have all new
No.
components in the front of it, they don't handle that bad. And compared to what it used to be, when I would have like, I don't know, a quarter of your steering like lock to lock quarter of the turn
Before anything
before
would
you're
happen.
touching in either direction
Yeah.
was so scary. And you'd hit the brakes and then it would dart to the right, or sometimes it'd dart to the left. It was horrifying. And I know that's not how they're supposed to be, but they're dog shit compared to the S10 front end on it. So it's got me thinking, like, I wonder what I should do to this thing. It'd be kind of cool to actually take it and autocross it out of Brian's track.
Oh, yeah, that thing would be blast.
It'd be hilarious.
Should totally
It
do
wouldn't
it.
do very well, but
Yeah,
it
but
would be fun.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's about. It's just having fun.
Yeah, like maybe I don't need to bag the whole thing and just do that. Whatever. We'll think about it. We've got some other projects we've got to decide the fate of, but
Yeah.
that's kind of where things are at with the shoebox. It's just been lovely. I've got a brake fluid leak in the driver's side rear, which I need to probably just tighten the line. I don't know.
Probably something that dumb.
Probably something that dumb.
Yeah.
And figure out this transmission situation. But I might swap in a TH350. I don't know yet.
We're down to all the little things.
Yeah, I'm putting an
Both
S10
those.
rear end in it too, though. That's one thing I've decided.
Yeah, I saw you looking for one.
Yeah, the beauty of it is the S10 rear end is like 54.5 inches from brake drum to brake drum. So you can do that or a Blazer rear end. They're basically the same thing. And what's nice about it is then you have a lot more options for gearing and limited slip differentials. And, in this case, you can do disc brakes on the back of it.
Yeah, that would be a great upgrade for that car.
Yeah. So whereas the 410 rear end that's in this thing can't handle a shitload of power, and it's the lug patterns don't match the front and the back. Thankfully, my wheels have both of the lug patterns on it, but so it'll be nice to have that match. And that's kind of where things are going for it. I might 2-link it. Technically, it's a 3-link. It's a 2-link with a pan hard bar. Or I don't know. Maybe I'll do something different. Maybe I'll do bag over coils and
dump her into the Toolies.
No. That would just be like a helpers thing. It just it's a little bit lower, but with the bags helping plus some shocks. I don't know. It's a lot to decide. I'd love to 4-link it, but I just don't know if I want to take all of that on this winter. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a relaxing winter for once.
Yeah, like basically
everything.
We're going to finish up our 2 cars, get yours running right, make a few changes on yours this winter, a few changes on that thing this winter.
A couple of things then.
But we've got new projects that are coming along here. We got a certain Volkswagen.
Technically, that's an old project that we're finally getting
It's
to.
the oldest project. That Volkswagen has been in the queue for longer than anything else.
Well, before we owned our current house, so...
Yes.
It's been a while.
It's been a long while. So that'll be fun. And we'll announce that, here before too long.
Yeah, when we get around to it.
Yeah. Well, once we have a game plan, because the worst thing you can do is tell people what's coming up and then just not get to it.
What you're
that's pretty lame. So, we'll tell you guys about it here before too long. Not to dangle a carrot, but that's definitely going to happen this winter.
Yeah.
So,
anyway,
thank you very much for joining us for another episode of the Brews with the Dudes podcast. Thank you. We appreciate you guys watching. We've had some pretty fantastic views compared to in the past.
A lot of positive responses, which is nice to see.
There's actually some decent progress happening with the channel. If you aren't subscribed, I hate to be this guy, but it is kind of what helps the show, what helps both of our channels. Please make sure the priority is dad mods. If you guys are looking for some fun automotive entertainment, watching us build our projects, and soon enough we're going to have a little bit more of like us taking them out and doing some fun shit with them.
Now that they finally run.
Yeah. So it's not just the build, but we've also got some really awesome builds that are coming up too. So channel's getting better every single time that we put out a video. It's a lot of fun. Even the very beginning videos are hilarious too.
They're a blast.
So check them out. So thank you very much. You can support us by doing that, or if you really like the podcast, subscribe to us on like Spotify or on Anchor.
Yep.
Or we do of course have these on YouTube where you can subscribe there as well.
YouTube, we got the Instagram and Facebook as well.
Yep.
So all sorts of ways.
We're kind of all over the place.
Kind of, yeah. We're that annoying billboard.
And let me tell you, so Dad Mods was always the priority. It's always been the goal. But I gotta say, it's kind of fun watching the podcast progress. And
yeah, because the podcast,
people really like it.
I feel the podcast is almost our Seinfeld. If that makes sense.
What?
Okay, so
okay, I'm hearing you out.
All right. So Seinfeld is a show about nothing. It is. That's the whole premise of the show. It's a show about nothing, and in a weird sort of way, our podcast. Every podcast is about something, but overall, it's just randomness. We have Brian coming in and talking about his racetrack. We have us talking about our kids. Maybe Steve's in talking about his kids and his truck.
Yeah.
But there's really no rhyme or reason. It's just kind of there.
Okay, so the way I see it,
I'm not saying I love that about it. It's just kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there's a little more direction than you lead on, but definitely we're a couple of dads. I think that the podcast exactly what Dad Mods would be if it was a podcast. We are a couple of idiots who sit around and drink beer on a Thursday night and film it with friends or people that we want to talk with.
Absolutely.
We talk about the automotive experience. We talk about being parents. We talk about beer.
We talk about hunting sometimes.
We talk about hunting.
Who's on here?
It's exactly what you'd expect from a couple of idiots who build cars.
Okay, I guess I shouldn't say it's not
Minnesota.
about nothing, but it's not like
I would say that it's actually about everything.
Okay, all right. And on that bombshell,
I'm sorry, buddy. I don't mean to be
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Drive safe. Tip your waiter. You know, all that
drive
fun stuff.
shit. Is that a Freudian slip? It's like I drive shit. Is that what you're really saying?
Drive shit, build shit, work on shit. You know, that's how it goes.
I couldn't agree more. Awesome. Hey, thanks you guys. Really, we appreciate you. So we will see you next week in another episode of the Brews with the Dudes podcast.
See ya.
Bye bye.